If you can read other people's emotions, turn those emotions into words, and then say them back to the person, you'll de-escalate conflict and build intimacy within a matter of seconds. This technique is known as labelling, and it's what master negotiators like my favourite, Chris Voss, use all of the time. A good label sounds like this. It sounds like you're feeling upset. It seems like something is holding us back here. It looks like you're having a good day. But although they seem like simple sentences, there is a science to it. If you craft your label correctly, you will decrease defensiveness in the other person, get them to talk more, and open them up to cooperation. However, if you craft your label incorrectly, other people will close off and become more defensive. So think about labeling as a way of inviting other people to talk without asking them any questions. But why does this all matter? It's because as humans, we bring two types of context to our interactions. We bring the presenting behaviour, which is what we do on the surface level with our words and our body language, but then there's always the underlying feelings beyond the surface level. This is where people's true motivations and emotions lurk. These things are the elephants in the room, the problems or emotions we're too afraid to address in our conversations, making our interactions very clumsy and hostile, which means when you label the elephants correctly, both people feel relieved, the other person feels received, and they feel ready to talk about things that truly matter. In the context of conflict, studies have shown that when you label other people's emotions correctly, brain activity moves from brain regions that are responsible for emotion and to other brain regions that are responsible for rational thinking. In the context of intimacy, other studies have shown that the poorer the communication you use, the less resonance there is between you and the other person. But if the next few minutes of your time isn't too much of me to ask, I'd like to now walk through how to craft your labels correctly. First of all, let's highlight the enemy we're up against here. Think back to the last time you was having an argument with someone and this person outright refused to accept how you felt or even acknowledge how you felt. Likely left you feeling more angry and distanced from this person. Or think back to the last time you was opening up vulnerably to someone and this person left you feeling distant and cold because you didn't feel received emotionally. And finally, think back to the last time you was in a social interaction where there was a huge elephant in the room that no one wanted to address, which made the tension boil over like a hot stew. So, the enemy to good communication here is addressing the elephants in the room. And the elephants in the room usually come in the form of emotions. So, emotions aren't the barriers to communication. They are the means by which you connect with other people. Labelling is a way of validating other people's emotions by acknowledging them. Don't worry, that doesn't mean you agree with them. Think about it as a shortcut to intimacy and conflict resolution, because when you label the elephants in the room, i.e. emotions, they seem less frightening. So to label, there's 4 things you need to do. Number 1, you notice the other person's feelings or the elephant in the room. 2, you turn those feelings into words. 3, you calmly and respectfully reflect those emotions back to them. And then number 4, you allow silence. Let's unpack these steps together. Number 1, notice their feelings or the elephant in the room. To notice other people's feelings, you need something called tactical empathy. This is where you fully open yourself to receive all of the cues and signals this person is letting off without criticizing or judging them in your mind. Imagine receiving other people empathically as if you are completely transparent. You're able to move into the worldview and perspective of the other person and see life how they see it. But don't worry, being empathic doesn't mean you agree with this person. You can see how many times I've recorded this bit because of the crosses. Being empathic means you just try to understand someone's point of view without losing yourself. Crucially, you must hone in on what this person is saying, how they say it, what their body does when they say it, and the underlying feelings beyond all of those things. This is otherwise known as their words, music, and dance. The words are what this person says and the vocabulary they use to say it. The music is how they say it, so their tone of voice. Is it very high-pitched and excited, or very low and sullen, or really intense and angry? Their dance is what their body does when you or they say certain things or certain topics are brought up. No, this is what psychics do to their clients whenever they walk into their office and start speaking. They size them up. Notice all of their clients' negative cues and responses to certain things, and then the psychic simply reaffirms their clients' lacking positive qualities to them later on so they feel better. So consider this reading of other people's cues as therapeutic. You're prodding and poking this other person's problems to reflect their emotions back to them, inviting them to go deeper. Before we move on to point number 2, you might like to practice tactical empathy right now. Feel free to pause the video, find someone in your immediate environment, be it a stranger or a family member, and really look at them while they're talking or doing whatever they're doing, and try to imagine how they see the world. What might their perspective be like? What might they be feeling? Imagine that you're them and you are wearing their shoes, so to speak. I did this once when I was in London in a place called South Bank, which is a very long pavement and loads of tourists and people were walking up and down. I was sat on a bench, just people watching, and as I was looking at people, I had the immense realization that, wow, I know nothing about these people, and absolutely everyone is so different with their own way of being, mannerisms and whatnot. So feel free to do that. If you're going to use me as your case study, let me know what you find. Point number 2. Now you've received this other person's cues, turn those cues into a feeling word. If they're fidgeting, they're uneasy. If they're avoiding you or ignoring you, maybe they're distressed or angry. Yawning, tired. Smiling, happy. High-pitched voice, excited. By the way, while we're on the point, the same framework applies for identifying elephants in the room as well as feelings, because elephants in the room aren't always feelings, maybe they're a situation. But the same process of noticing the cue and the signal of the situation and then turning it into a label, which we're going to do next, applies. Note, your interpretation of the elephant in the room is going to be an interpretation. You might not have access to all of the facts, but that doesn't mean you can't call it out. Point number 3. Label their emotions or the elephant in the room back to them. Use these 3 sentence starters. It sounds like, it seems like, it looks like. My favourite one is it seems like, but they're all the same. It sounds like you're excited. It seems like you're feeling fed up. It seems like you're feeling angry with me. It looks like you're feeling tired. Now let's cover how to do it with elephants. Same logic applies. Sounds like we haven't solved yesterday's issue. It seems like you don't want to make this work. It looks like something I said has troubled you. Note, the intonation at the end of your labelling sentence is going to determine whether it comes across as a question or a statement. And remember, labels are a way of inviting other people to talk more without asking them anything. So we don't want to label it as a question, we want to deliver it as a statement. For example, if you end high, it's going to come across as a question. If you end low with your intonation, it's going to come across as a statement. For example, sounds like we haven't solved yesterday's issue? Sounds like we haven't solved yesterday's issue. It seems like you don't want to make this work? Seems like you don't want to make this work. It looks like something I said has troubled you? Seems like something I've said has troubled you. Point number 4. Allow silence. You need to give the other person time to receive your label so they can gather their thoughts. And remember, labelling is a way of getting the elephants in the room and the underlying emotions in other people out into the open so they can be discussed calmly and rationally. And remember, when you label negative emotions, you diffuse them. When you label positive emotions, you reinforce them. But note, there's one last word of warning I want to give you when crafting a label. For your labelling to be effective, you have to use the impersonal pronoun it rather than I. An I label would sound like, I'm hearing you're feeling upset. That's likely going to spark defensiveness in the other person because it forces you to take responsibility for the possible offence your bad label could cause. The opposite would be, seems like you're feeling upset. A good label is a neutral statement that encourages other people to respond beyond a yes or a no. Keyword encourages. Because let's take the example of, okay, you've got a friend or your partner is being a bit avoidant, they're not speaking to you for whatever reason. That's an elephant in the room. There's been an atmosphere in the house for the past few days. If we wanted to spark more defensiveness in them, we would just turn that into a question. You okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Are you upset? No, I'm fine, go away. Invite them beyond a yes or a no. Seems like you're feeling upset. Oh, relief. Elephant in the room has been addressed. They now feel invited to talk more. Which, by the way, if you get your label in any situation wrong, the other person will simply correct you, which is fine because now they're talking. And if you really get it wrong, you can simply say, I didn't say that's what it was. I just said it seems like that. In fact, you might be thinking about this already, but you can purposefully deliver a wrong label just in order to encourage someone to speak. Again, staying within the context of someone close to you, a friend, loved one, or a colleague, is being avoidant, they're closing off and they're not talking to you for whatever reason. Don't ask them a question and close them off even more. Deliver a wrong label. Seems like you're feeling hurt because of something I've said. You have no idea whether they're hurt because of something that you've said, but deliver that label anyway and they'll correct you. They'll be like, oh, no, it's not something you've said. Do you know what, work's just been really hard this week and I just didn't really want to talk about it. Thank God. They now feel like someone has received them and the problem has been taken out of the amygdala, the emotional part of the brain, and into more rational areas. Little story from my life because this example cuts close to home. I have 2 sisters and 1 brother, and when we were younger it was just me, my siblings and my mum in a house together, and we weren't, probably still aren't, the best at addressing emotional issues, which means that when we were younger one of us would get into a mood, let's say it was me, and I would be very avoidant, I wouldn't want to talk to anyone about it, but everyone would tiptoe around eggshells because they didn't know how I felt or what the problem was, and it would just create a horrible atmosphere in the house. After a few days, my brother, my sisters or my mum would finally be like, oh, what's up with you? Or why is there such an atmosphere? Or what's got your knickers in a twist? And it would just create so much more defensiveness where I felt demonized for not opening up. But anyway, now I know what I know about labeling. Those moments to me are just like light bulb moments of someone could simply have said, seems like something's troubling you at the moment, or seems like you're feeling a bit down. And that would have been an invitation to open up rather than a shutdown and a force to open up. Anyway, that's a skill I need to practice. Before we finalise with the specifics of how to apply this to conflict management and how to make someone's day, just want to leave you with this. Labelling isn't a strategy, it's a tactic. So use it in the same way that you would use a spoon to stir a soup, but that spoon isn't the recipe itself. Feel free to end the video here, but if you want to go one step further, we're now going to finalise with how to specifically apply labelling to conflict management, delivering difficult messages, and how to make someone's day. First up, conflict. Rule number 1 of solving any conflict is before you offer any solutions, all heated emotions must be de-accelerated. Yes, I mean all of them. As Chris Voss says, you need to clear the road before advertising the destination. So, as you know already, you observe all of the emotions that are implicit in this conflict, you label them, and you do so without judgment or criticism. Because the sooner you can get the emotions out of the irrational amygdala, that's a brain, the sooner you can get it into the more rational areas of the brain, such as the prefrontal cortex. That looks like a butternut squash. You bring the emotions out into the sunlight to dry. For example, a stranger bumps into you on the street and starts shouting at you. It seems like you're angry with what I did. Emotional judo. Remember, clear the path before you advertise the destination. Advertising the destination straight away would be, no, well, you bumped it, no. De-escalate emotions. In another example, you ask for a raise, but your boss takes a long time to respond and starts looking a bit perplexed. Your label. Seems like something is bothering you. Elephant out in the room. No, it's not that, it's just, I want to give you this. Now they're talking. The opposite to delivering a label like that in conflict is trying to speak through your negative emotions in a very dysfunctional way, which, as you might have experienced before, doesn't bring any results in terms of a resolution. Related to conflict though is delivering a difficult message. Before you deliver any difficult message, first think, right, what are all of the negative things this person could think about me in response to receiving this? Hopefully you understand by now that denying any negative just increases its intensity. So, consider this example. I don't want to sound harsh, but no, this is going to sound really harsh. I don't want to make excuses, but this is going to sound like one big excuse. Chris Voss exemplifies how he does this on his negotiation course. On the first day, he encourages students to come up on stage and do a improv negotiation with him where they have to save a hostage's life but negotiate through him. But instead of saying, okay, who wants to come up on stage? He labels the negative and says, guys, this exercise is going to be incredibly uncomfortable to do, but if you do it, you'll learn more than anyone else in this room. And suddenly, most people's hands go up. This technique of labeling the negatives when you have a difficult message to deliver is called an accusation audit. And judges use this all of the time in court. They get all of the negatives out of the way first, all of the sentences or the crime that has been committed, and then they follow it up with the lighter stuff. As Chris Voss says, the beauty of going right after negativity is that it brings us to a safe zone of empathy. And if you have a really difficult message to deliver to someone and you're labeling the negatives, don't worry about going overboard with labeling as many negatives as you can. You might even ask this person, I'm going to seem like I'm making a big excuse, I'm going to seem like an idiot, I'm going to seem like I've wasted your time. Is there anything else that you feel we should add to this list? And this principle is especially applicable when you're apologising for something. The principle here is run to trouble. As soon as you've made a mistake or messed up, apologise straight away and label the negative as intensely as you possibly can. Look, I'm a doofus for doing that. I really apologise. Or, look, I'm an idiot. Think about the worst things this person could think about you and label it straight away. Finally, let's cover how to label to make someone's day. To make someone's day through labelling, all I want you to remember is people want to be seen. So far throughout the video we've spoken about how to diffuse the negative, but the same process that we've covered applies to how to reinforce the positive. You notice the feelings of the other person, in this case the positive ones, you turn them into words, you label them, and then you allow silence. Seems like you're having a good day today. Seems like you're excited about something. The best situations to do this in is when someone, especially in customer service, is in need of an empathic listener. The next time you're at an airport or a coffee shop or you're about to be served by someone who has just had an encounter with a very angry customer, that's your opportunity to be the empathic listener. Label their emotions. Hi Wendy, I'm Lewis, if you can see their name on their name tag. Seems like they were upset. Oh, thank God, they're thinking someone isn't just going to ask me how my day is. Someone is going to acknowledge the emotional state that I'm in. Customer service people are great to do this to because their jobs are very miserable a lot of the time. I remember I did this a few months ago. I was in the city of Bristol and I was in a shop buying toiletries or whatever, and there was this lovely girl. She was behind the counter, but she was so tired. I was a bit worried to label it because she looked so tired, but I just walked up to her and I said, seems like it's been a long day. And I could see her smile straight away, which gave me the impression that all she wanted was someone to understand how she felt. Remember, human connection is the goal before anything. So with that said, remember that framework and now go make someone's day. Stay disciplined, playful and dangerous. Thank you very much for your time and attention. Adios muchachos y muchachas.